Hey, it's Chuck. At number one, the most beautiful uniform in all of sport. If they brought back the gray stripes, this thing is so far out in front of everybody, you can't touch it. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. And welcome to Juck on Bucks on a Wednesday. Appreciate you guys so much for joining me. Last night was the college football committee rankings release, and I've got some thoughts. I'm sorry I didn't go live. I was going to go live for that, but I was not feeling good yesterday. In fact, I didn't make it down for Ryan Day's press conference, but we'll talk about that tonight on Bucket Huddle Prime Time, both Ryan Day's press conference. I think he had some very interesting things and telling things to say in that press conference, and we'll talk about the college football committee rankings because there's a whole lot of people who just can't seem to get it through their thick skulls how they go about this. And I don't the national, we'll get into it. We'll get into it tonight. Bucket Huddle Prime Time. Be there on the Bucket Huddle YouTube channel at 8 p.m. We'll talk about it live. So I was going to just kind of skip today's show and wait till tonight to talk, but we've got to talk some recruiting, specifically just 2026. We're not getting into any 2027. So we're just talking about today, this class of 2026, the 9th ranked class in the country, which has disappointed a lot of people. And as we know, in the era of the budget, evaluations have never been more important. And personally, I'm also very disappointed by not having a top 5 class. Ryan Day's had a top 5 class every year he's been at Ohio State. But personally, I like a lot of the evaluations in this class. And I think when it's all said and done and plays out on the field, it will not be the 9th ranked class when it's all said and done. Just like 2021 was the 2nd ranked class per the rankings, it was the number 1 class in the country as it played out on the field. I think that this class could potentially be a top 5 class when it's all said and done on the field, because I think Ohio State has nailed a lot of these evaluations. But I totally understand if you're someone who just looks at that ranking and says that's unacceptable. I get it. I understand it. But I got good news. I got good news for those of you who've been disappointed by this class. And it's true that we usually never see any movement by Ohio State late in the class, a couple months before signing day, that is positive movement. We usually are just playing defense, holding on to a class that is already pretty much buttoned down. Maybe the feeler's out on one guy, and when we're kind of hoping, okay, maybe we'll have one more announcement or maybe be able to flip one guy. And that usually never happens. Usually you lose one guy out of the class, but it's playing defense at that point in most Ohio State classes. This one, totally different. It's not a complete class. And take a look at the helmets behind my right shoulder, which I've strategically organized here. And let's just kind of go down the list here. Wisconsin, North Carolina, Wisconsin, you've got Luke Fickell and his debacle, Bill Belichick and his debacle, Clemson and his debacle, Dabo Swinney over there, Mike Norvell, Florida State there. Things not going good for Florida State. Then in the front row, you've got Penn State, LSU, fired, Auburn, fired, no action with Ohio State and Auburn, and then Florida. Every one of those schools, every single one except for Auburn and Michigan State in that row, every single one of them, Ohio State is seizing the opportunity of the bad things that are happening at those programs. Every single one of them, Ohio State's exploiting. I'm going to talk to you today about at least one prospect from every single one of those programs that are having these disastrous seasons, in Ohio State trying to benefit from their pain, which is fantastic, guys. It's fantastic. And when I look at this class, based on what Ohio State is about to do, in my opinion, I no longer look at it as the 9th ranked class. I think that it's just about guaranteed to finish at least 7th. I think it's going to finish 7th because we have got some action here, some action coming fast and furious. And let's start by talking about some of the position groups that we've talked about already, and some of the guys we've talked about recently. and then we're going to talk about some new guys. Now, some of these new offers, and thankfully we've got new offers, new feelers out to some guys, and we've got this UCLA game also happening at night, right? So the UCLA game, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, is a night game. So Ohio State has offered some new guys, gotten in on some guys that maybe they were in on previously and are doubling back in on. And you've got this night game at UCLA, which is really helping them, and it's going to help them land a couple of guys. So let's recap the needs that are left in this class of 2026 first. For starters, you lost your tight end. And while I don't think it's a need numbers wise to get a tight end, you had Corbin Fordham flip to FSU. So he flips into Florida State, which is a really bad move for that young guy. In the Buckeyes, looking for a tight end. And we've got some good news there. Cornerback, you've only got Jordan Thomas in the class, who's an excellent cornerback, but the numbers in that room are low. You could use a couple. You need at least one for sure. And we've got some very good news there. So we're going to discuss corner. Offensive line, you lost Aaron Thomas, who could potentially also flip into FSU, which is just another really poor decision. But you gained Landry Breed. So sitting at 4, that would be just fine. But Ohio State being opportunistic here, and you could potentially add a big timer there. At running back, things look a lot different for the team right now on the field than you anticipated heading into this year. And that could potentially lead to some portal departures. And you've already got Favor Aki committed, but you're definitely going to want to add at least one more running back. There seems to be at least one answer there. So why don't we just start at running back, and we'll start with our Wisconsin helmet on the end there. And Amari Lattimer. Amari Lattimer is the Wisconsin commit out of Georgia. Top 300 prospect, a blue chipper. Obviously, this is a guy who it looked like for a while there was a easy flip, right? His brother goes to Wisconsin, but it looked like Fickle was probably going to get fired. And Ohio State were the only ones looking at him, really, like trying to flip him out of there. Well, it now looks like Wisconsin is going to retain Luke Fickle. His brother goes to Wisconsin, is on the football team, and the family seems to really like Wisconsin and really like Fickle and his staff. So he could potentially stay there, but talking to Ohio State also got him thinking, why don't I explore some other options? So he explored Miami. This past weekend, he explored Tennessee. Obviously, 2 programs who are willing to pay a lot of money, and we'll see what happens there with Lattimer. But sometimes we see a guy do this, they'll have Ohio State kind of open their eyes and then think maybe I should look around a little more. And that's what happened here. I think Miami gave him a big offer, but I also think this is a really sharp family who understands the benefits of Ohio State. So we'll see. Amari Lattimer, I'd love to have him, but the Buckeyes have another option here as they doubled back on a prospect that they had offered over the summer, but didn't really pursue much at all at the time. And I was really excited at the time about the offer of one Legend Bey, a quarterback out of Texas, who is, he could throw the ball a little bit, but more of a running quarterback and just an electric athlete, absolutely electric athlete who can score from anywhere, a 10.23, 100-meter guy with great moves, and he's tough. But he's 5'9", 180, 185. And when you look at a guy that size, what do you do with him? You got to get kind of creative. You can't really stick him back there as an every down running back. And it didn't appear like Carlos Loughlin was really going after him, but he did offer him. Well, he committed to Tennessee, and that really was no surprise that Ohio State wasn't really in the running at the end there. But when you look at the running back room right now, based on what's happened this year, obviously CJ Donaldson out of eligibility. Then you've got Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, who have kind of surged up to that top 2. They'll be second-year guys, and that leaves the 2 second-year guys that were in front of them now looking up at guys that are younger than them, and that's James Peoples, Sam Dixon, and you've also got Turbo Rogers, who we've not seen yet. So that puts James Peoples in an awkward position. And what does he do in that scenario? That's usually the scenario where we see guys start to say, okay, well, maybe I'm going to be blocked out. I might have to go look somewhere else. And based on that, in this development here, I think that now we're seeing Ohio State push for at least one more running back in this class to join Favor Aki. And Legend Bey is the first up here with Lattimer, who looks like he's going to be making a decision here soon as to whether or not he's going to flip out of his Tennessee commitment. So he came in for a visit, an official visit, which he did not let Tennessee know about. And that usually doesn't bode well for your relationship with that school that you're committed to. And I talked to him after his official visit, and this was not coach speak. Not coach speak, official visit speak. Like it was, this guy is really, really enamored with Ohio State. And I would not be surprised one bit if we didn't see him commit to Ohio State here pretty soon. Now, Tennessee is going to go see him, and we'll find out how much they value him. They're going to go see him at his game here coming up this Friday. And if they don't come with a big financial offer, I don't think that this is, I think this is a done deal. I think he's going to be a Buckeye, and I'm really excited about that. But obviously you got to get creative in how you use him. It seems like Tennessee wanted to use him as more of a wide receiver, running back hybrid, but like wide receiver first. And Ohio State would be kind of the opposite. Tennessee's got some good wide receivers in this class, and I think that puts him pretty low on the totem pole. So I don't think they're going to take a big swing with a huge financial offer here to try to keep him in the class. And it seems pretty clear, like everything is pushing hard momentum towards Ohio State with Legend. So looks really good. Like the sound of that. Obviously, we've talked about Kevin Brown quite a bit over the last few weeks. Kevin Brown, former 5-star tackle who is now a top 100 kid. Buckeyes are recruiting him as a tackle. Penn State commit the Abercrombie Hulk, who absolutely hates recruiting. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania kid who just wanted to go to Penn State, easy peasy, stay close to home, no muss, no fuss. Really loves offensive line coach Phil Troutwine, who's one of the best at Penn State. And Phil Troutwine told him after James Franklin got fired to go look at some other options. Straight up with him. Phil doesn't know if he'll be back. So the first thing he wanted to do was go to his dad's alma mater, West Virginia, which they did in the middle of the week last week. And things were great. Loved it. Easy breezy. No muss, no fuss. Let's just go to West Virginia. And that sounded like it was going to be it. And he didn't even want to come to Ohio State for his visit over the weekend. But much like Legend Bey, he did come in for his visit. And according to the quotes he gave to On3, he was absolutely blown away. And now it's between Ohio State and West Virginia. And Penn State, they're not hiring a coach anytime soon, from what it sounds like. They're taking their time, which, you know, obviously you got to get this right for Penn State, but it's not good for, recruiting and holding on to some guys. But, you know, you got to get the coaching hire right first. So I get it. But I think that they are going to lose guys like Brown. And it seems like Ohio State now leading West Virginia here. Ohio State's close. Ohio State can develop him. He's obviously got NFL dreams. West Virginia sitting at 2-6 or 2-7 right now, though he likes Rich Rod. It seems like the Buckeyes, the clear leader here, and this would be just an amazing thing to fall in Tyler Bowen's lap. And props to him for going out and being aggressive here. You know, the guy wants to stay close to home. He doesn't want to go through the big process, and Bowen has made this as easy as possible for him. And I actually think this might happen here. And if it does, boy, does this offensive line class just jump through the roof. Now you're looking at three total top 100 guys with Sam Greer, Max Riley, and Kevin Brown. 1 5-star with Sam Greer out of that 3. Maybe the best left tackle in the country. 2 tackles, right? So essentially you're upgrading from Aaron Thomas to Kevin Brown, which is an incredible upgrade. Like I said, Kevin Brown was a 5-star at one point in the class. I'm not sure what dropped him down at one point in the cycle, but he's still a top 65 player in the country. He's a high rated blue chipper. It's clear that this guy is all about his work, and I love it. So that would really be an amazing first abbreviated class for Tyler Bowen. So interesting stuff there. Just a really, really lucky in seizing the moment for him, having Max Riley, having Sam Greer, and having Kevin Brown right there. But, you got to get it done, and Tyler Bowen getting it done. And he's also obviously starting off on a hot start in 2027. So really happy to hear that. Then we got Jay Timmons, who is Rivals' #2 cornerback in the country, out of Pittsburgh. Dad, Lawrence Timmons, played for the Steelers. You might remember him. He was a linebacker, so Jay doesn't have his size, but Jay's got the juice, man. Jay's definitely got the juice, and Jay committed to Florida State. He sees what a dumpster fire it is, unlike guys like Aaron Thomas and Corbin Fordham who are trying to get into that mess. And Jay was on campus for the Penn State game, and boy, did he have a ridiculously good time, a great visit. And all signs point to me to this one being locked down. And I really believe this is happening. And I believe he'll join Jordan Thomas in this class. And the reason I believe that is because now that we're factoring in revenue share, when you've got a room that has very low numbers and the cornerback room is under its numbers by a couple, that means you now have the available budget to make sure you go get your numbers, which means they can offer him more than they would be able to a room that is kind of maxed out on numbers. For instance, tight end, right? You got a ton of tight ends. You got your numbers already. You could go this year without taking a tight end, but corner, you're a couple numbers short. So now you've got some extra money to be able to spend, and you must get at least one in this class. Jay Timmons seems to be the guy that they're going to make sure they get. And with that freed up money, I think that the writing's on the wall here that Jay Timmons will be in this class. And if that happens, and Walt brings in Jay Timmons with Jordan Thomas, that is one heck of a duo. In fact, those two together, better than last year's class with Devin Sanchez and Jordan Woods. Jordan Woods is a real project guy. Jay Timmons and Jordan Thomas are two future starters, two potential future high-level starters. Of course, you could say the other way. No, give me Devin first. And that doesn't matter. One Devin is equivalent to two of those guys too. And I would understand your logic there. Whatever. I get that too. If that's your argument, because Devin is off the charts good. And I'm not going to even start talking about the games, but I really like that Devin is out there playing a ton recently. So that's good stuff. So in addition to that, you've got CJ Bronaugh, another cornerback prospect who is coming in for an official for the UCLA game. He is the 15th ranked corner in the country out of Windermere, Florida, 6'2", 185, 190, faster than Jay Timmons, but raw. A smooth athlete. I really like his game. Got a little ways to go, and he's a Florida commit. He is Florida's top ranked commit. Hasn't officially decommitted, but could we potentially see Walt lock them both down, which would be, if he did, absolutely amazing. And that's not all. We'll keep going here as we go to tight end. And we know that Keenan Bailey has been absolutely fixated on Max Sutter in this class of 2026 for good reason. Max Sutter's fantastic. He had Corbin Fordham committed in the class. Corbin was the 3-star kid, developmental guy, but Mac was the dog that he wanted. And Matt committed to Alabama, and Keenan has continued to try as hard as he can to pursue that. And Mac loves Ohio State, and he loves Alabama. And in that scenario, a lot of guys just say, all right, I'll let the money be the tiebreaker. And the money was certainly the tiebreaker here, and in a pretty big gap. So despite Keenan's best efforts, this was always a long shot. And then you had, of course, Corbin Fordham flip out of the class. So now he's got a spot open. You got some tight ends in the state of Ohio. In Preston Friesel committed to Notre Dame. Nick Latour committed to Louisville. And I don't think there's much of a shot for Preston Friesel flipping him out of Notre Dame. But he was kicking the tires on these Ohio guys, going and visited. He went and visited a couple of weeks ago, Nick Latour. I would like to see Nick Latour in this class. He's big, he's long, he can move, he's a great kid. And a couple of weeks ago, Keenan went and saw him, and Keenan basically told him, depending on what my older guys do, essentially going to the NFL or not, if that opens a spot, I'll be coming to see you. It's yours, essentially. Well, there already was a spot as Corbin left, so it sounded like maybe he was just slow playing him. I don't think that's the case anymore. Don't think that's the case anymore. And I expect Nick Latour to be at the UCLA game, and I now expect him to get that offer. And should that happen, will he flip from Louisville? I suspect he will, and I suspect he probably will on the spot, because this is an Ohio kid who really, really wants it. And I love that. So I now think that Nick Latour will end up the tight end in this class of 2026, and I'm pretty damn happy about it. So good stuff. By the way, I was talking about this on Twitter yesterday. I am officially no longer saying Louisville. I'm no longer saying Louisville. I'm not playing the game anymore. It's Louisville. It's Louisville. I know they want us to say Louisville. I'm not doing it. It sounds like you got marbles in your mouth, and I'm not acquiescing anymore. Now, we're talking about adding some blue chippers, obviously, with Jay Timmons, Legend Bey, Kevin Brown, 3-star Nick Latour, and potentially CJ Bronaugh. 3 out of 5 of these are probably going to happen here. Maybe 4 out of 5, which would be fantastic. And again, adding blue chipper is going to make that rating go up. And I think that you could potentially get to the 7th ranked class here when all is said and done, because we're not done yet. I think we got some big time movement coming on the defensive line. But before we go there, Braxton Rembert, who is the linebacker that James Laurinaitis saw down in North Carolina, committed to Wake Forest, and that is his only Power 5 offer outside of Ohio State. And you can look at that a couple ways. James found an extreme diamond in the rough, or James out of his mind here. That's James Laurinaitis. I'm going to go with he found a diamond in the rough. The kid's got incredible physical traits at 6'5", 200. He can seriously move. Not afraid to hit with that, pretty slender frame of his. He's in there getting nasty. And what James is looking at here is, I've got CJ Sana and I've got Sincere Johnson. And now let me take a project guy. Let me take a project guy with something that I can't teach. I can't teach 6'5" and with long arms and good foot speed. I don't think he has very good lateral foot speed, but we'll see. What he's trying to do is, look, 3 years down the road, what I might have here is an absolute killer. So why not? I've got the room. And I kind of love these kind of guys. I love taking flyers on these kind of guys. We're talking about a 3-star, number 1,200 ranked prospect in the country, who only has Wake Forest as his, he committed to the only big offer he had. Wake Forest, boom, I'm in. And now this dude, I talked to him yesterday, coming up to visit Ohio State for the UCLA game. And not a very talkative fella, but he's coming up. I would be through the moon, excited about this if I was him. And I suspect that he is, but he's not yet decommitted. I think I'd have flipped on the spot without visiting Ohio State if I was him. I think that's the move I'd have made. So I think that shows his maturity, for one, because he didn't. But, what an opportunity for a guy like that. Could you imagine? The dude has one Power 4 offer, Wake Forest, and Ohio State comes in. James Laurinaitis comes and offers you. Like, what a difference. What a difference in your recruitment. People comparing him to this is always stuff that irritates me, man. James Laurinaitis looking for the next Arvell Reese. And then they compare this dude who does not have anywhere near the athletic gifts that Arvell Reese has. And that's very clear on the tape. But Arvell was a top 200 prospect. And I can't stand it when you get to get, and I've had it in my comments 100 times. Arvell Reese was a 3-star. The hell he was, man. The hell he was. It's clear you never watched Arvell when he was in high school. Arvell was a total dog. And he is a total dog now. Obviously, the signs were all there. They were definitely all there. He was a top 200 kid, 4-star prospect, blue chip recruit. And he was clearly a dog back then. But Braxton Rembert, he'll be in town for the UCLA game. Now, let's move to the defensive line, where we have the most movement, and it's names we've been talking about. It's new names, and it's a lot of names. And we'll start with Dre Quinn, defensive end, who was the former Clemson commit. Buckeyes still in the fight for Dre, who is now down to Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee, the 6'3.5", 225-pounder out of Georgia. who I think is a little underrated at 4-star number 366 overall in the country, at roughly the 40th ranked edge in the country. I think he is a little bit better a prospect than that. I love the way he moves. He's long, he's strong, he's flexible, he's quick, and he seems to be very, very aggressive. Love that. Seems to really put a lot of work in the off season. One of these guys where you go on his Instagram and it's just like training. I love those kind of kids. But pairing him with Kari Wilder would be absolutely huge. By the way, Kari Wilder, I told you now, the number one defensive lineman in the country per Rivals, and they are just raving about the season that he's having. There was just a big write-up about him just the other day. A man amongst boys, high-level California football, and he's just a man amongst boys. And we've watched some of his highlights here. By the way, Chris Henry Jr. and Caden Dixon-Wyatt combined for like 5 touchdowns and 275 yards in their game against St. John Bosco last Friday. So the fellas are ripping it up out there in California. How could I forget Luke Fahey? Luke Fahey, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns against an 8-1 team out there as well on Friday. So all our California guys ripping it up, as is Brady Edmonds in the class of 27. But pairing Dre Quinn with Kari Wilder would be absolutely huge. And, it seems to me that we know Texas and Tennessee throw around a lot of money, but the fact that Dre Quinn was committed to Clemson, gives me some hope that his priorities aren't just about money, because Clemson, similar to Ohio State and how they spend, they don't throw around money like Texas and Tennessee. So there's surely some hope there. And it seems that Dre definitely likes Ohio State. We'll see how the money affects things. Then we got Jimmy Phrisco. You guys remember Jimmy Phrisco. We talked about Jimmy Phrisco last week. We watched his film, Jimmy Phrisco, North Carolina commit. There's more to his name there. I just call him Jimmy Phrisco. And Katy, Texas, super productive kid, 6'4", 270, made it to the Polynesian Bowl, which is a big time honor, was supposed to be in for the Penn State game, did not make it. He had a reason, and they all have a reason when they don't come. I'm always skeptical of the reason when they don't come, but it sounded like Jimmy Phrisco was really excited about this. So maybe his reason was legit. But Jimmy, when we talk about him, 466 overall, 3-star, he's a guy that plays outside in high school. So he plays defensive end, and we know Matt Patricia could potentially be trying to beef up Ohio State on defensive end, but not Jimmy Phrisco. He's not that guy. He's going to be definitely an interior guy because his feet aren't fast enough to play defensive end at Ohio State. So we're talking about another interior guy, which gets me thinking, why are we talking about another interior guy? Believe me, it gets more deep than this. So Jimmy Phrisco, we'll see what happens there. He's supposed to come back for the UCLA game. Then, more interesting, as former Ohio State target, Emanuel Ruffin, guys remember him, he was supposed to come visit Ohio State over the weekend. And Emanuel Ruffin, a guy that Ohio State, LSU were his final two that he was choosing from. And, well, really, Ohio State and LSU didn't really want him. And he delayed his decision and ended up committing to Colorado. Well, Ruffin, a big old dude who can move pretty doggone well out of Bessemer, Alabama, blue chip recruit. And I'm not sure why Ohio State backed out on him for the first time around. They basically chose Cam Brickle over him. And it seemed at the time to be like, I don't know. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes with that, but I liked his film better than Cam Brickle. He seems like a equally twitched up athlete who's also naturally bigger and stronger. But he committed to Colorado. He has since decommitted from Colorado, and the Buckeyes have a lot to do with this. Has he put on some great senior film? I don't know. Haven't seen it yet. It's not out publicly. It would seem to me like he probably has. He's probably put on some really great senior film, and the Buckeyes have decided they're back in on Emanuel Ruffin. All right, that's great. He's also an interior guy, which leads us to another one, JJ Finch. JJ Finch, an Alabama commit out of Warren High School in Indiana, which is a high school who has produced some really good defensive linemen. JJ Finch, 3-star, 6'3", 260, committed to Alabama in June. LSU, Tennessee, big time suitors. So while a 3-star, certainly had some serious programs after him, Alabama took his commitment, and in high school at Warren, played mostly inside. But when we talk about being able to play outside, certainly quicker feet than Jimmy Phrisco. So could potentially be an exterior guy. And as we, talk about potentially moving to some more 3-4 fronts with all the variations that Matt Patricia uses, I think he's going to want to beef up and get a couple of these bigger defensive ends, which would really make sense here with JJ Finch. Buckeyes also offered Darryus Mckinley. Darryus Mckinley, an LSU commit, 3-star, 6'3", 280, who his older brother, Dominic Mckinley, was a 5-star a couple of years back, and the Buckeyes were one of the 5 hats on the table, had a real good relationship with him, but they're from Arcadiana, Louisiana, and older brother Dominic chose LSU. So younger brother, of course, chooses LSU as well. Well, LSU doesn't have a head coach, so Larry Johnson goes ahead and offers the 3-star, 6'3", 280 LSU commit, seemingly with hopes to go ahead and take him and get his brother in the transfer portal, because Dominic McKinley has been tearing it up at LSU. So why not shoot your shot for that one? But what we're seeing here are the Buckeyes going all in on a bunch of defensive linemen, which we'll talk about in a minute. When we talk about Dominic McKinley and the strategy of offering the younger brother to potentially get him in the transfer portal, it's an interesting one. And it's similar to the Chaz Coleman situation, in my opinion, because with the new rules, I think that if this was last year, you'd have a really decent shot at potentially making one of these happen with Chaz, with Dominic McKinley, a kid like that. But now, the portal used to open immediately when a coach left, and those kids could get the hell out of there. But now, when a coach left or was fired, they got to wait 5 days until the new coach gets hired. And if you're a new coach and you're coming into a new job, you've got this $20 million revenue share or somewhere abouts. Well, you're now assigning a value to each one of those guys on your roster. In the case of Penn State, number one, Chaz Coleman really likes Penn State. That's why he went there. And he went there as a guy who's making, baseline money. Well, if I'm the coach coming in and I'm looking at the Penn State roster, how am I going to prioritize how I'm going to spend this money? Who am I going to retain and who am I going to want to retain most? Chaz Coleman's a 1st-round draft pick with 2 years of eligibility at one of the most valuable positions in football. That guy is getting whatever block of money that needs to go to him to keep him there. Like, that's just how it is. And you ask yourself, is he Ohio State's number one priority? Because there's a lot of people saying Ohio State will just beat the offer. Well, no, he's not going to be Ohio State's number one priority. Is he going to be that coach's number one priority? Pretty damn close, buddy. Pretty damn close. In addition to that, Penn State was there in recruiting him first, and he likes Penn State, and Ohio State kind of dropped the ball on that one, offering him just 1 month before signing day, slow playing him. Some people hold a bit of a grudge on that kind of thing. So ultimately, that's why I don't think the Buckeyes will get an opportunity to get Chaz, because I think that the new coach, whoever that is, unless he's a total bozo, will lock Chaz down. But same thing goes for Dominic McKinley in theory. I think that if you're the new coach coming in, Dominic McKinley's been playing really, really good as a second-year guy for LSU. You're going to lock that down, which is why I don't think Darryus McKinley is a serious option. But when we talk about the Ohio State defensive line, all of a sudden we're seeing the Buckeyes push for more dudes here. And I love it, for one, but why the sudden push for all these defensive linemen? Well, when we look at the roster, Caden Curry's out of eligibility. Kenyatta Jackson, if he keeps playing this good, he's got to go. I mean, he's going to get a 1st-round grade or that kind of attention. His traits are just too good athletically, his size, his athletic traits. And And if if he continues to go, get hotter and hotter, like we saw Jack Sawyer at the end of 23, it's going to be real tough to entice him to stick around. Jack Sawyer wasn't getting a first round grade. Kenyatta Jackson's traits are through the roof. Jack came back. Kenyatta would kind of have to leave. So in that scenario, Kenyatta and Caden are gone. What about Caden McDonald, who is just a production machine? We don't know yet. Obviously, Ohio State will try to, do what they can to allocate what they can to keep Caden. How does he get graded out yet? I don't know. I really don't. I don't know how the NFL is going to view him, but you would hope that you could keep him for another year. But let's go down this list of who you got in the scenario that the three of them are gone. Also, Ty Malone would also be gone as well. So you're now looking at Bo Atkinson at defensive end, potentially. Zion Grady at defensive end. CJ Hicks. That's not great. That's not great right there. CJ Hicks as a full-time starting defensive end would not be fantastic. Bo Atkinson has not been fantastic. He's limited athletically, got a great motor, nowhere near the athleticism to play the run game like Jack Sawyer. So you're looking at Zion Grady, honestly, in his second year as potentially a guy who he's not played much this year, but potentially a guy who, might be starting on this roster if it plays out like this next year. And that is, like, what can you say about these guys? Last year, coming into this year, this defensive line was a concern, but it wasn't really the starters. But looking at who could potentially be starting next year, it doesn't feel great, man. It really doesn't. On the inside, Will Smith Jr. and Edric Houston, if those were your two starters. Eddie is coming on. He just had his best game yet. In fact, his last 3 games have been his 3 best games of his career. So if he continues on that trajectory, it would certainly feel good having him at 3 tech. Will Smith Jr. continues to play good. And now I'm starting to think, I'd feel comfortable with him as a starter. After that, you're looking at, Jarquez Carter, who I think will continue to progress and be a pretty good 3 tech behind Edric. But, you're dropping down to Eric Mensah, who hasn't shown us much or played much at 1 tech behind Will Smith Jr. Or Maxwell Roy, who is a freshman this year, and, he's not played at all. At defensive end, Dominic Kirks, does he factor into the equation? Guys like Jason Moore and Josh Mickens, do they even stick around? We don't know. Logan George, does he stick around? Don't know. He's not played much. I honestly think that when we look at next year's defensive line, Kari Wilder is going to come in and factor in a big way. And that is like that. As good as Kari is, that doesn't speak well for what you have. So potentially you're looking at the portal here to add some pieces on the defensive line. And as we've seen this year, even with high dollar guys in the portal, you can miss. Buckeyes missed big time with Ethan Onyanwa. You might as well set $1 million on fire. We're halfway through the season. The guy's played a couple garbage time minutes and worked his way out of the lineup. What a waste. And it's just an incredible waste of money. And Bo Atkinson, while playing and getting his snaps, that was another big dollar one. And I don't know if you've got the future there that you were hoping for out of Bo. But that's why I love that Ohio State is now going hard in on this defensive line class. Get these bodies in, man. And, every scholarship goes against the cap. So you understand why they came out and said they want to stick around 90 scholarships. And I always thought they would continue to inch up over and over and over this number because it's just too tempting when you got guys that are like, I would take that guy, but I'm out of numbers. But I actually do got numbers. I don't have to stick at that 90. And I think that's what we're going to keep seeing, which is fantastic, man. Especially when we're talking about offensive and defensive line. Bring the dudes in. If they don't work out, they will filter their way out. No harm, no foul. They'll go and get a everybody wants an Ohio State transfer, so things will be good for them. They'll have learned some at Ohio State, and ultimately they'll be better for it, even if they have to transfer out. And Ohio State will be able to keep its numbers where they need to be with guys filtering out. But bring them in the program, let them see if they got it. And these guys, there's some really good looking prospects here. I really like JJ Finch, Jimmy Phrisco. I'm up in the air on because of the foot speed. Dre Quinn's fantastic. Braxton Rembert is a long-term project. And look, if James Laurinaitis wants somebody for a long-term project and he thinks he can develop him, like, hell yeah, man, let's roll. So Nick Latour, I think that he is going to be a guy who's not going to come in like Nate Roberts and be someone who can contribute immediately, but he's not the athlete Brody Lennon is, but as a guy who can come in and potentially turn into a Will Kazmarek type and can be a really good blocker somewhere down the road, who can also add something in the pass game. I like it. I like getting Emanuel Ruffin back in. We'll try to get his senior film and take a look at that. And obviously the Kevin Brown, Legend Bey, Jay Timmons news is just fantastic, over the moon. So all in all, this class just may end up being, top 7 class, and it may add potentially 4 more blue chip prospects before this is all said and done. And if it does add 4 more blue chip prospects, where does that put that in the rankings? Let's take a look at where the class stands right now compared to other classes. SC remains on top with a total of, 35 commitments. They got themselves, per Rivals, 2 5-stars, 21 4-stars, 12 3-stars, which, average per player ranking of 90.35. When we look at the Buckeyes, 90.84, and that pretty much stacks up with most. Oregon looks like they're on top there, and they usually are, man. They consistently, very selective here. As you can see, they've only got 18 commits with the number 3 class here at a 92.56 per player ranking. So they're crushing it. Notre Dame crushing it, 91.03 per player, the 4th ranked class. But when we look at this cluster of Texas, Bama, Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Ohio State, to me, if the Buckeyes go ahead and get in a couple more of these blue chippers, could easily pop in over a couple of these guys, potentially 3 of these guys, because these classes are all very, very similar. If you just look at Ohio State, 1 5-star, 13 4-stars, 7 3-stars. Texas, 3 5-stars, 11 4-stars, 7 3-stars. Okay, well, Rivals says 1 5-star. However, if we kind of look through and, Rivals 5-star that they're currently giving us is Kari Wilder. But Sam Greer will end this class with his 5th star, so that would be 2. Then we can also say the 24/7 composite has Blaine Bradford as a 5-star and Chris Henry Jr. as a 5-star. So, it's not 5 stars across the board for all these guys, but there are some very high-end players here. And ultimately, I think that this class has the potential to squeak into like 6, maybe right outside the top 5, which, I think that would make a lot of people happy just to see that number. And if that makes everybody happy to see that number, then I'm thrilled. Nonetheless, I think that being able to potentially take advantage the way Ohio State has of the coaching turmoil and be aggressive like this is a really good sign. It's not how we usually see them act towards the end of a class. They don't usually act like this. So that's great and a great sign. And to be able to pivot in a year when clearly they're dealing with a disadvantage, and we've talked about that ad nauseum. We're not going to get into it anymore, not today, with the House settlement and how all that's going, because it's just another hour-long conversation. But they've been operating at a disadvantage, in some ways self-imposed, with some rules that, not everybody's following. That's very clear. But they have been operating under those rules, and to be able to come out of it with the 7th ranked class, and a class that, again, I think a lot of people think, myself included, some really, really great evaluations. But if you can add Jay Timmons, Kevin Brown, Legends kind of who knows what happens there. But Jay Timmons and Kevin Brown, and then maybe an Emmanuel Ruffin and a Dre Quinn. Like, my goodness, it just goes way up, just in my personal evaluations, and I think most other people's as well. So good news, guys. It's all great news, and I wanted to come on and just talk about this today. Appreciate you guys so much for joining me. Please join me tonight at Buckeye Huddle Primetime at 8 p.m., where we will talk about a little bit of this, but a lot more about what's going on in the world of college football, what's going on with the Buckeyes, Ryan Day's press conference, some interesting things he had to say. That at 8 p.m. tonight on Buckeye Huddle Primetime. Please subscribe to Juck on Bucks if you have not already. Like the video as well. That's how we keep the lights on here at Juck Eye Studios. I need those subscriptions. I need those likes. Appreciate you guys so much. Talk to you tonight. Have a good one. Juck on Bucks out.